father, he drove to New York City and talked to some Armenian rug dealers he knew in New York. In those days, and even in my childhood, there was an Armenian rug district in what's now Chelsea in New York City. He persuaded these people to loan him some rugs. He drove his car back to Rochester, New York, and started selling rugs door to door when he was 16 years old. By the time he was in his 20s, he had a furniture and rug store. By the time he was in his 40s, he had the biggest store in Rochester. And in his 50s, by the time I was born, he decided he'd had enough of the weather in Rochester, New York, and wanted a store in Florida where he could go in wintertime. And my father was sent to open the store in Florida. And I grew up in Florida, where there really was no Armenian community. We moved down there when I was a little boy. Then my grandmother on my father's side came to live with us when my grandfather died, and the Armenian culture, such as it is, that I absorbed was entirely through my grandmother, who subscribed to Armenian papers, Soviet Life, one of probably the few people in Florida that subscribed to Florida Soviet Life magazine, cooked Armenian food, and eventually an Armenian church was established not too far from our house years later, and she was a big part of that. So I grew up in Florida, then I went to college and law school in the Northeast U.S.
Thank you, Mr. Hanessian. It's very interesting that coincidentally I was born and raised in Norwegian. Yes, and I have to take you to Norwegian. This is where I went to school, to musical school.
Really?
Yes.
There's a little museum there?
Yes, there is. It's devoted to Hajjan.
Yeah.
And we had people from Hajjan. Whose ancestors were from Hajjan, and they were helping us with the city, with the musical school. And everything.
Really?
This is very interesting. I have to take you to
Okay, we have a deal.
Yeah. So, as Young AMCA is about arbitration and promoting arbitration, I think it would be very interesting for us to know how did you become interested in international arbitration? What was your motivation?
Yeah, so in law school, well, first of all, I mean, nobody in my family had been a lawyer. I didn't really know. All I knew about what lawyers did was what I watched on television. And so what lawyers do on television, they will go to court. They try cases, at least when I was a boy. So I thought, okay, that'll be interesting. I can go try cases. When I got to law school, I got very interested in public international law and international human rights. And when I came out of law school, I worked on international human rights. I had a foundation grant and represented migrant farm workers in the United States and Haitian immigrants and some other things. It worked out that Baker and McKenzie had a lot of cases at the Iranian Claims Tribunal, and I'd done some litigation in the human rights work, and they wanted somebody to help with these cases against Iran at the Iranian Claims Tribunal, and I had done a lot of public international law, which they liked, and I had gone to court and tried some cases which they liked. So even though I didn't have any commercial law experience or private law firm experience, they hired me, which I was grateful for. And I stayed there throughout my career. And in the beginning, though, I mostly worked on cases at the Iranian Claims Tribunal. I worked on about a dozen cases there. So I just got lucky, to put it another way. So these were the Iranian Claims Tribunal cases were proceeded under the UNCITRAL rules, the ad hoc UNCITRAL rules. They had just been enacted by the UN, and they were slightly modified for use at the Iranian Claims Tribunal, but it certainly gave me a lot of experience with those rules, with international arbitration generally. Baker McKenzie had a senior partner, a man named Henry DeVries, who ran the Parker School of Comparative Law at Columbia University and had worked for years as an arbitrator. There actually weren't many international arbitration people in the US at that time. And he had a fantastic library of international arbitration materials. And Baker actually had the third best international arbitration library in the city at the time. We used to lend, after Columbia and NYU, we used to lend out books and things to the firm.
I think that's very inspiring. question would be, what changes have you seen in the arbitration globally and in Armenia specifically, and are you optimistic about the future of arbitration now?
Yeah. Several questions. Objection. Well, I talked a little bit, very little bit about changes yesterday at the plenary meeting. And I referred to international arbitration when I began as a sort of a secret society, commercial arbitration. You know, it was very much centered in Paris, where the ICC is located. There was very little international arbitration in the United States for these Iran cases. The materials, there were books, but they were very expensive. And there weren't, it was a bit of a closed shop. The people in Paris were expatriate Americans and people from other countries, but they wanted to keep the knowledge close to the vest, we would say, so that people would hire them. So if you were a litigator, somebody who went to court in the United States and you had an international arbitration, your usual client would say, what do we do with this? And what you would do is you get on a plane and you go to Paris and you interview these people, and these people would help you with the case. As I said yesterday, all of this changed with the internet. Once it became possible to access this information electronically, it just democratized this practice, and it was possible for people to gather these materials and learn how this was done all over the world. In parallel with the Bismuth Court, how many people here have done this international commercial arbitration? Well, more of you should do this. It's, and I know several, teams from Yerevan State and the American University and the French University typically go every year. And now there are 400 teams, from around the world who go to Vienna and to Hong Kong. And literally tens of thousands of people have learned about how to, what international arbitration is, what are the sources, materials, how a case proceeds through their experience with the Bismuth Court. And there are pre-moots. I know the Armenian teams typically, historically, participated in pre-moots in other countries before the big event in Vienna. And it's, anyway, so many more people were exposed to this. So many more people began to do it, not just in Paris and London and Geneva, but really all over the world. The United States now has more ICC cases than any more American parties than any other country. This would have been unthinkable 30 years ago. So there's that. There's this tremendous explosion of institutions. We have institutions now, virtually every country has at least one. Some have many, many. Some maybe have too many, and that's sort of another topic. But it's something that should be in the consciousness of everybody when they're drafting a contract. What is the best way to resolve the dispute if it's a commercial dispute? How do we avoid the courts of the counterparty? How do we do this efficiently and reliably? And then in Armenia, it's just, this is more recent, obviously, but so much in Armenia is recent. Things are changing very, very, very fast. I was at the Yerevan State University today, meeting the rector, and I remember going to Yerevan State University a few years ago and meeting the former dean, who was the dean of the law school for a long time. And the difference between meeting, I'm sorry to say I don't remember his name, but the difference between meeting that fellow and meeting the rector, who was very entrepreneurial, and promotional, and energetic, and perfect English, and, talking about all the ideas that they have and different programs, engaging with the alumni and the diaspora. It's just night and day. And of course, we see this in arbitration now, that we have a truly independent institution that will provide truly independent and impartial arbitrators and efficient and effective dispute resolution.
What is interesting is that the rector of Yerevan State University, he has become so enthusiastic about arbitration that last year he reached out to us asking whether they could implement arbitration clauses for the labor contracts.
Yeah, that was a extremely impressed with them. I was here there with the Yegashe and some others, and very happy to support those programs.
And maybe my last question will be, as we launch the Young AMCA, my question would be, what is your vision for Young AMCA?
Well, you'll hear more about this when we have when we're joined by people that are participating in this. But first of all, it's a networking opportunity, and it will allow younger ADR, alternative dispute resolution, people here in Armenia to get to know their counterparts in the diaspora outside the country. As you'll hear, there are lots of Armenian heritage people that are doing this work full-time, doing it extremely successfully, and it will allow you all to interact, and as you travel, you'll know people in the different cities, you can help refer work to each other, but you'll also have a social time with each other. It's a way to create a community of ADR professionals of Armenian background around the world. That's one thing. Second thing, it creates mentoring opportunities. There are senior Armenian heritage ADR people, such as myself, and Levon Golendukhin is here, and Counsel is here. And these people are available to you, to mentor you, and to help you as your career advances. And then part of the point of this is to bring the younger generation closer to the less younger generation. This is a series of generations, I suppose. And have somebody for you to reach out to. And maybe it's here in the country, maybe it's in New York or London or wherever it happens to be. But that part of what we want to do is connect the generations. And then another thing, I think, is there are many of these young organizations in the various institutions and arbitration organizations, is it gives you a platform to begin to organize your own events, participate in your own events, speak at your own events. If you've got the newsletter, write for your own publication, which can be circulated. It's a way to allow you to begin to do your own promotion. And as somebody who spent most of my life in a private law firm, law firms are businesses. It's important to create a path for yourself that creates value for your organization. And part of what we all have to do is get out there and be known. I used to tell junior people at my law firm, it's not enough to do good work. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient to do good work. You have to be able to get credit for it. People have to know it's your work and you've done this job. So people know you. And it can be tricky depending on your organization, but the people here will have this platform to get out there and make their own talks, write their own articles, and get credit for the good work that they do. So, in broad strokes, I think that's the idea. And, well, I guess there's one more thing. Particularly for people in the diaspora as well as people here, it's good for AMCA because you become familiar with AMCA, you get to know the case managers, you understand the quality of the work that they're doing, and when you're in your law firms, you can put AMCA on the table as an option for dispute resolution clauses. And AMCA will continue to develop as your careers will continue to develop, and you'll have opportunities to help promote AMCA just as AMCA is helping to promote you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanessian, so much for sharing your personal and professional background with us. This means a lot for us. And thank you for your continued support and enthusiasm also, not only for AMCA but also for Young AMCA. This is where I will leave you with our distinguished speakers who we will introduce, I'm sure.
You can plan our trip to New Hampshire.
Sure. I invite the speakers to the floor.
Okay, so let me begin by introducing everyone, which I'll do briefly. Sonia Tsaturyan was born and grew up in Vienna, right? But took a LLB undergraduate degree and a degree at Vienna University. And she remains in Vienna, where she works for the Schoenherr firm, one of the very best firms in Vienna, practicing international arbitration. Next, we have Adina Rasova. Adina is in the case management group at the International Arbitration Court in Kazakhstan, Astana. So, and she has experience with young groups, and we'll talk about that. Next is Pia Tavidian. Pia is from Paris. Pia has many degrees. She has degrees from Paris, from London, from the University of Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, where I went to undergraduate school, and University of Bogota, Colombia. And Pia is, for the last year, has been working as my tribunal secretary and sole means of support. And Levon Golendukhin is counsel at the Eversheds firm in the New York office. Eversheds is an international law firm where he practices international arbitration, investment arbitration, and commercial arbitration. Originally from Montreal or Toronto? Toronto, sorry. I got the country right, you know. It's really important to distinguish between Canadians and Americans these days. Although it's always been Canada's view that you should always distinguish between Canadians and Americans. All right, so I thought what we do is we just talk to you individually a bit, and then maybe a bit of a round table so that it's a little more interactive for you. So Sonia is a member of Young AMCA, of course, Young AMCA, International Council for Commercial Arbitration, the Swiss Arbitration Association Below 40 group, the Austrian Arbitration Association. So with these, what has been your experience with the young groups? What have you, what can you tell us about your experience?
Thank you, Brent. And big thank you for my part for the idea. I think this is a terrific idea and terrific initiative. This is better. Yes, this is better. To my experience with young initiatives.
Groups, yeah.
Yes.
Why did you join so many young groups?
Way too many. Just like you, I do not come from any lawyer's family. I am the very first person in my family that chose law as their field to practice, and that on itself can bring challenges. So you know you are on your own when it comes to developing your practice, your experience, forging some networks, and finding ways to go further in your career. And there were, I think, those young initiatives that you mentioned that I'm part of played a key role. In particular, I heard about arbitration for the very first time, I think, when I was 20 or 21, and one may say it's early enough, but still, you do not know what it is all about. You do not know who are the people who are involved and what does it entail to actually work in the field. And I had the luck to be in a city where, first of all, the Vismut is organized every year, where I had the opportunity in every April to go to the University of Vienna's rooftop and find everybody who is in the sphere and network a bit. And I had the opportunity also to engage in those young initiatives that you mentioned that played a pivotal role in my advancement in arbitration. And just to give a couple of examples maybe, the Young Austrian Practitioners Network, which is also below 40 initiative of the Austrian arbitration community. That was, I think, year 2021, when I got my first speaker engagement, one of the roundtables organized by this initiative. And YAP, that's the name of the initiative. We do this every month or every 2 months, or on a specific arbitration-related topic, and they invited me as a speaker. And I was 24, 25, and that was an exciting event for me, an exciting opportunity for me to step in a role of and get my first speaker engagement. Even if it's a very small one, it's 10 people, you still feel the excitement. In addition, I did, in parallel to my studies, I was part of a couple of Young AMCA organized events, like cross-examination workshops.
Tell people what ICA is.
ICA is, if I'm not mistaken, is the biggest arbitration network, arbitration-related initiative association. And not only do they organize, I think, once in 2 years, like the Congress, which is the biggest arbitration-related event. They also have a dedicated network, the Young AMCA, for the young practitioners, which do not only engage in specific events, which should foster the networking of the young practitioners and knowledge building, but also they have the very well-known mentoring program, which I actually don't do, but I have so many friends who did that and deeply benefited from it. They tie to you to 1 or 2 prestigious and very well-known arbitration practitioners, with whom you will work for 2 years and have an opportunity to develop your knowledge on arbitration, even meetings, and that's a great opportunity for somebody who is really interested in the area. And I think, just maybe to underscore this, by no means such initiatives or such participation in such kind of events is a shortcut to building a career in arbitration. It's indispensable that you really work in the sphere, be it in an institution or be it in a law firm. But this is, like in parallel, an opportunity really to network. And maybe if I'm coming to networking and what it really did for me, I think one of the unique features of arbitration, and if you are a practitioner in arbitration, you are not working only as a counsel. You have an opportunity to work as an arbitrator, you have an opportunity to work as a legal expert, so there's a plethora of career possibilities and career paths you can follow. And for that, networking is in the core of this field. You have to know people so that you get your nominations as arbitrator, you get the possibilities to work on as co-counsel in disputes, and what a better way than to start it early and to start it with young network opportunities.
Thank you very much. All right, Edana, you also participated in young organizations. Tell us about your experience with it.
I do. First of all, thank you very much for AMCA for this event. 2 days were very intensive, but at the same time very helpful. My name is Aidana Rasova, and I'm only a Kazakh person here right now on the stage, which I'm very happy for. I represent the Astana International Financial Center Court and International Arbitration Center. We work with AMCA, and AMCA is the connecting point with Armenia for us right now. But we present ourselves as a one-stop shop for the international commercial litigation and arbitration mediation in Central Asia. The significant part, a little bit about where I work. So a significant difference is that we operate under the principles and norms of the English common law. And we have our own legal regime. So as you know, Kazakhstan is a civil law country, and we are legislation in the legislation system, which makes work very interesting. Relevant to this topic,
while you're talking about your institution, tell us the case, when it began, and the number of cases that you've had. For people who think that AMCA, although it's making progress, it's very interesting for me to hear about the progress in Sona. So go ahead and tell us about the case.
Thank you for your question. We started operating in 2018. In 2019, we had only 1 case in arbitration because the jurisdiction was new and it was hard to the community to accept the new things. And it's a pretty common thing for the young arbitration institutions and in general commercial courts. But as of today, we had 200 cases in court and more than 4,000 cases in arbitration and mediation, which makes and clearly shows that arbitration and mediation in our region is becoming more and more popular, and the significance of the work that we do is increasing for both domestic and international businesses and investors.
So we'll have 4,000 cases by 2030 here in AMCA.
Hopefully, I hope.
All right, please continue with your experience with the Young organization.
Yes, so in 2024, IEC launched an organization which called IEC BIS Alumni Association. So as a former BISmooter in general, like woodwork competitions are the only way for the students from our region, from state universities, to know what is international commercial arbitration is, and that's the only opportunity to get into this sphere in general. And we see a lot of potential in BISmooters, former BISmooters, and we wanted to them continue their developing, because most of the BISmooters get into law. So some of them go to the consulting, some of them go to the big law, and it's very tough to be a junior lawyer, and I think everyone here understands that you workload and etc. Plus, they require from you soft skills that you have to network, but most of the time nobody explains to you. I mean, for the students also, I think, in these networking sessions after the arbitration weeks, you want to approach a professor, but you don't know how and what kind of questions to ask and what should I discuss with that person. Because I had the same problems, and I think it's same for a lot of people, and we started doing initiatives and become an organization right now with 400 BIS alumni in Central, like 200 actually, BIS alumni from Central Asian countries, and not only, but also China. So we are currently this amount.
Oh, really interesting. And what kind of programs does the Young organization hold to the do?
There are three main branches. First one is we do a little interviews, like conversations, just like happened with you. Our first guest was Ms. Carolyn Lam from the American Arbitration Association. And we, as an IEC, has a lot of connections to the institutions, both state and international. And we see and work with a lot of best practitioners of the world, and we want to give the opportunity for the students and for the junior, for the people who just started their career, to get to know them more and to understand what it is like to be a professional. And it's more like career-oriented organizations, and that's what we do. The second is research mentorship opportunity. We work with a lot of universities. In Armenia, we work with Yerevan State University. Yes, and we are establishing right now one-on-one research mentoring opportunities. So what I noticed when you start a career in law, you lose your connection with academia. And when you graduated from bachelor's and your mood career stopped, you don't actually interact much with the professors, but you need somehow to collect a portfolio, right, for the next degree, LLM degree, usually people in international commercial arbitration try to do. And we basically connect junior lawyers with the professors at the universities, so they can create their own articles and publish their articles. And it's an opportunity for the young lawyers to create their portfolios, an opportunity for the professors to get help from the best researchers, because BISmooters are known to be best researchers. And it's a win-win situation for both of the parties. And third is internships. So we work with, as I said, in a big law firms in Kazakhstan. Last internship that we had interns from China, interns from Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, and they were physically in Astana, so they had an internship in AFC Court and IC, and after we had open days in like White & Case, Kinsteller, the biggest law firms in the region. So we try to show people what kind of careers they can have. So not only what we do as an institution, but what it's like to work at a law firms. And I'm actually happy that I'm a part of this initiative, but it's not only me. So I'm an institutional chairman. I'm a connection between students and the institution, but I also have board members. They represent currently China, Pakistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. They work in different spheres. So the chairman of the association is Peking University, the Harvard of the China, I think they call it. And they work in law firms and consulting companies like KPMG, Dentons, and etc. So we try to collect diverse people from diverse cultures and diverse experiences, so we can offer more to the ISWIT alumni in general. So I'll be very happy if you will be interested in one of the programs. And of course, for the practitioners, if you're interested to be a mentor or have an interns from different jurisdictions, please be proactive, and I hope we'll have a great opportunity to work together in the future.
Thank you very much. Pia, tell us a bit more than I was able to say about your background and what you're currently doing.
First of all, please don't steal our opportunities. No, I'm very happy to see that there's so much interest in Young AMCA. I'm very happy to be here in Armenia. Just for my background, I'm French. I grew up in France, but I did travel a lot for my studies. And my grandparents from my father's side they were from Armenia, a part which is now Turkey. And I haven't been to Armenia for 10 years, so I'm super happy to be here. And what was the question, Greta? I'm sorry.
What are you doing now?
Okay. I hope you were aware.
Well, I have some idea.
So I work as a tribunal secretary with Grant. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about what I do, because I found that tribunal secretaries, they are doors to the closed world of arbitration that I didn't know really about. I thought, you go out of college, you apply to a firm, and that was extremely difficult. As an international student, an LLM student in the US, the competition is absolutely crazy. And I learned a few tricks that maybe I thought could be helpful. I was told that law students would be here today. I hope I was told the truth, otherwise it's not too bad. If you already have a job, I'm not sure it's going to apply, but still, a few things that I learned, I want to share. First of all, a tribunal secretary, I don't know if you know the role that they play. I didn't know how central it was. But basically what I do is I support Grant in taking the decisions. So from the point that he's appointed to the moment that he renders the decision. What I do is I try to help him understand the facts of the case, what the parties are claiming, what they're arguing, and see if the facts or the story matches the evidence, for example. That's a lot of what I do. And it's super interesting, you get to see from the inside how counsels argue their case and how arbitrators think. So for example, what strategies are going to be working on leading arbitrators like Grant. So it's very enriching. And I didn't know that I could do this job, so I'm very grateful, and I wish that someone had told me this when I was desperately trying to find a job as an LLM. And the other thing that I wanted to share...
You have Levon to thank for this. Levon
yes,
referred
I was going to get there actually. The other thing is, like we mentioned before, networking, and why we're doing Young AMCA is, I'm grateful that I found this job thanks to Levon. I'll come back to this. But I was the only one from my class, 100 people from UPenn, to find a job with so little experience, work experience. People in my class were like 30, 35 years old, and they had years of experience in very great law firms back home in Brazil, in Colombia, in Europe. So I think the difference for me was the networking, and I spent all of my time there in these chairs, going to all the conferences, trying to speak to speakers like Grant. I didn't know what to tell them, but I was there. And I learned two things that were essential. First of all, young initiatives are very important because you get to meet people that are in the same situation as you, and you also get to meet people who have been helped before and are grateful, and so they will be very kind and they will offer you their help. That's maybe what happened to Levon, or maybe he's just a very kind soul, maybe both. But the second point is also the people who helped, like Levon, were people that I had something in common with. So I met Levon through the Armenian circle, and out of the 100 people that I met and that I took advice from and I asked help from, the people that helped me most were people I had connection with and or met through Young initiatives and just were more experienced but wanted to give back a little bit of the opportunity that they received. So I think this is what we want to do with Young AMCA, just a community where people can come, they learn, and at some point when they grow in their career, they can just give back and contribute to the community, and this hopefully will eventually make Armenia as a platform of arbitration and as a country hopefully grow as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Levon, from your perspective, maybe we begin with AMCA itself. As a practitioner in New York and a large international law firm, what do you see as AMCA's path to success here? Why is that important to you?
So, a couple of things. I want to get into AMCA success in just a moment, but I did want to pick up that how many people before me mentioned Viz today, and how the international arbitration community is pretty tough to crack, but it's a very large global community, and it's even tougher to crack before the internet. But I think what AMCA does is it creates an opportunity for networking and learning about arbitration without having to go to Austria. It brings the Austrians here. It brings everybody here for the third time now. We hope to learn from your experience and piggyback and replicate that success here. I think it's not a pizza where you take takes a slice. It's a wedding cake. We add layers. Why is AMCA's success important? It is the first arbitration institution in Armenia to have an international focus and a reputable credentials within the international arbitration community. And I think it has the potential, and it's already starting to live through that potential of changing business culture and dispute resolution culture in Armenia. We inherited a legacy of Soviet perceptions about what arbitration is, and they were not all positive. In many ways they were very not positive, and I'm curious also to hear about what your experience was in Kazakhstan and how, because I think you mentioned in your early adoption there was some resistance to the idea of international arbitration, and what sort of the younger generation and older generation, and how education can bridge that gap. So I think that's one of the big potentials for success. The other is I think like everyone on the panel here, I didn't have many Armenian mentors to look up to, and I was the first in my network in this field. And I was, thanks to the internet, I was aware that Grant existed. Had a big poster, like a superhero. Maybe not actually, but it's. I did get to meet Catherine Kasejian in law school, and she came to speak at Columbia when I was there, and that was
a poster of her would be appropriate.
And so understanding that that this wasn't as closed of a circle as it was made out to be, and that there were pathways in, and you did have to work hard, but that it was as exciting a field as it was. I think that was a meaningful experience for me, and I hope that bringing the center and its activity to Armenia brings that about for the new generation, and also helps connect business and enterprise in Armenia with the diaspora as well.
Do you have any, before we open this up to the group, but do you have any particular words for younger people about sort of strategic ways to position themselves to find?
Yeah, I think anyone admitted to practice law in Armenia is an expert in waiting, and knowing your expertise is step one. So, you know, there's a number of institutions and global law firms that tend to have a outsized reputation and activity in the international arbitration space, but none of them know any of the necessarily domestic law that they're operating with. So knowing your expertise, so A, you have substantive expertise in Armenian law. B, you have seen AMCA founded and grown from the start. So if you know the rules, you also have procedural expertise over that. C, you're not far, you're a phone call away, and you're a conference away from meeting the people that run the center, the legal directors, the case managers, the Secretary General. And so when you're in a room and you have the potential to speak about the center and advise about when AMCA is right for your clients in a way that neither the law firm does nor somebody more experienced in the field but less experienced with AMCA does. So understanding your unique and your unique expertise in that regard and leaning into it. So that's step one. Step two is networking. So networking both within Armenia and outside. Within Armenia, you want to know who the strongest arbitrators are. You want to know how they think. You want to know when you are considering them. If you're at arbitration in Armenia or expert in, an expert search in Armenia, you want to be able to advise. So and so it would be a great fit for this kind of case. And you want to network internationally because all of these global firms and arbitrators, they will need your advice as co-counsel, as experts, as local counsel, case manager, in these matters. And there's a few different business models that the global firms have, whether it's alliances, regional networks. And, if you're interested about those, we can speak later. But they all have sort of one or two law firms in Armenia that they tend to reach out to when they need advice in Armenia. And and third is get familiar with AMCA, because being here is step one, and learning it and promoting it is the final step.
All right, we'll take questions now, but before we do that, we had the current steering committee up on the screen, and perhaps we'll come back. And I think my role here in helping to begin this is basically done. I'm not going to participate in the formation work and such, but the one thing that I would strongly suggest to the steering committee is that you have term limits, in 2 years, 3 years, but that this be a constant dynamic group. This is not a Politburo that is up there until people are 50 years old. The idea is people go on the steering committee, they come off the steering committee, people continue to be involved. It's a dynamic process. So the initial group was chosen from people who expressed interest, who some of us have met along the road, but it's really open to everybody. These organizations typically, like a lot of, basically every organization, belongs to the people who do the work. And so if you want to come on and participate and do the work, when the term limits of the original group expire, then there'll be a position for you. So nobody should feel excluded because you're not in this initial group. There will be a turnover, and I very much hope, and it'll be a dynamic organization. Okay, so let's just open it up. If there are any questions, yes, please.
Thank you so much, dear speakers, dear moderator. I guess this is very important and interesting for us. My name is Mana Shaboyan. I'm a student of Yerevan State University, Faculty of International Relations. With your permission, my question is as following. In a world where cross-border disputes are increasingly complex, how can international arbitration ensure both neutrality and fairness while avoiding the perception of being influenced by powerful states or populations? Thank you.
So, yeah, I asked Adama about the experience in Kazakhstan with cases against the state, right? And what did you tell me about this?
So we had overall 9 cases against state at they both at the court and arbitration center. So why it's connected? Why I talk about both institutions at the same time? Because enforcement works connected. So when you get the arbitral award from the IEC, it is enforced through the AFC court. So you go to the AFC court, you enforce some papers, and then it's get enforced. So we had 9 cases against government bodies. And unfortunately, fortunately, I cannot judge that, but government lost all 9 cases at the court and arbitration center. It's not to say that we are against government or we are pro-businesses or anything, but it's just how it's happened. That was the ruling of the judge and arbitrator. And they were all enforced for 100% party satisfaction, so government gave back all the money. And I think it is very hard, like when, as the Ms. said, that it's very complex, like cross-border disputes are very complex. And our institutions plays that role as a guarantee of the fair resolution of the disputes in Kazakhstan for the investors who invest into Kazakhstan. So it's very important for us that the interests of both investors and government are met, and it's hard. But I think it depends on the arbitrator. As a case,
it depends on the institution choosing an arbitrator. If the parties can't agree, typically the parties will choose their own arbitrator, and those 2 arbitrators will, with consulting the parties, will choose a chair. But if there's an impasse, and that happens sometimes, then the institution chooses the arbitrator. So at the end of the day, it's can the parties trust the institution to provide a truly independent, truly impartial arbitrator that the parties can trust. And on behalf of the Arbitration Council of AMCA, I think we have in place a structure that will, at least for me, I'm confident we'll be able to give the parties a chair that they can have trust in and rely on the outcome. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to the response?
I mean, one can write dissertation on this topic. Anyone has. I think you mentioned the most important word is trust. I mean, this whole process of arbitration is built on trust. One may think that you can get away as an arbitrator by being partial or having instances of whatever, from corruption to contacts with the council, and it will work out and you will have no consequences out of it. It's not the case. I mean, what you do observe, at least in Europe, once an instance pops out like that, as an arbitrator, your career is over, your reputation is really over. At least our firm will never even consider that person to nominate again. And the market is, well, we are very connected. This is a very big legal sphere, but everybody knows everybody, and the word spreads around. So it is building trust, and those who break this trust are rather soon than late out of the system. The system clears itself out.
And that's true for institutions as well as individual arbitrators. If people don't, and that's why I think this example in Sona of, people say, well, we can't arbitrate in Armenia because if it's against the government, then that'll never be, we can never win. If we win an arbitration, we won't win in the courts. But, eventually we'll have a record and people will be able to rely on that. And it's incredibly encouraging to hear in Kazakhstan, not that I'm against, I represent governments, I've been appointed by governments, I'm nothing against governments, but it's remarkable that investors have had such good success at your institution. I think that's a credit to the institution, personally. But Levon, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think at the institution level, trust is also built by fear of undoing what you've done. Institutional trust, trust in an institution rather than trust in a person. The more integrated a center is, the harder it is to take apart. So even if there is ever some sort of state intent to do so, if it's a fringe institution with no industry relevance, with no significance in, on the broader economy, that there's less of a disincentive than if it is the most popular center, if it is what foreign investors count on when making their risk assessment and entering the country, and if it's a country that depends on foreign investment, everyone is watching, just like our professions community is watching each other and who's misbehaving. The business community is watching, and which states are misbehaving with respect to their institutions. And if they're making the promise to investors for a neutral and impartial and efficient dispute resolution forum, we're building the record to show that's here.
Thanks very much. Yes, please.
Good afternoon or good evening. I don't know, is it evening already? My name is Ani Harutyunyan. I'm originally from Armenia. I'm new in arbitration, but I have already had about 8 years of experience, and my background is more on public international law, and I have worked a lot in the aspects of international criminal law, human rights, strategic litigation. I've also worked on justice and security sector reform. But the recent from 1 to 2 years, I decided to do a little bit of change in my specialization, and international arbitration is a fascinating sphere. It's fascinating not only in terms of the content, but also in terms of the community, actually, how connected it is, how more cooperative it is, surprisingly, by the way, for me, because I would expect that the corporate side of law, let's call it a bit more corporate than the human rights part of law, but in fact, actually, it's really cooperative and supportive, and these kind of initiatives are the evidence of such cooperation. It's a wonderful initiative. Thank you very much, Lily, first of all, for all these initiatives and the wonderful organization of the Armenian Arbitration Week, and thank you also, all of you, for Young AMCA initiative. My question would be really practical, and I'm really genuinely curious about the work of the Young AMCA and how to become a member, actually. That's very interesting, if you could elaborate on that. Oh, I forgot to say where I work. Now I have recently joined the Hogan Lomas International Law Firm based in Munich, International Arbitration Department.
You're a great candidate.
Yeah, it was my elevator pitch to become.
Yeah, when you're selling something, you always have to tell people how to buy it. Does anybody want to, any steering committee member, have an answer? Beyond contacting Lilith, I mean, we have. Well, what would you suggest at this point? We tell people who want to participate. Who should they contact?
Well, soon I think have platforms. We will share the information about the platforms that you should join and become Young AMCA members.
We're still working on doing our homework, so I think in a couple of days we'll be done, or a couple of weeks. And I think for now, just by following the social network channels of AMCA, you will be very soon also be informed about Young AMCA's own network and the ways to participate, be a member, and be part of it.
And of course, if you want to join the steering committee, we are free to apply for that.
Anyone else have any
Thank you, all the speakers, for the interesting communication. And here we are sitting and listening your speech, and we are all happy to be here at this moment. I'm Tsaturyan, and I've lived in Armenia, and now I'm learning in Yerevan State University as a lawyer in master's degree. And I have a question which is not about much of the professional things, but actually you can answer this question by that. I want to know what kind of difficulties you have faced during your first steps in this field, and I want to know what kind of individual solutions you have made to overcome that problems. And also, the second question is about not only Armenia, but maybe it's connected with different countries too. I want to know what is the problem that in countries like Armenia we have overloaded courts, and many people continuously go in the same path, and what we can do to solve the overloaded process in courts and gradually make that maybe the works through the AMCA, solve the problems of the people through the AMCA or the arbitration systems in different ways. That is it. Thank you.
We can start. I think you had two questions. First, related to the challenge that we faced and how we dealt with it, and the second question, how we can go with overloaded casework of local courts. I would start with answering the second one. I think it's a very quick one. By implementing more AMCA dispute resolution clauses, arbitration resolution clauses in the contracts, and delegating some of the work from local courts to arbitration. And I think it's not me to speak, but I think AMCA has so far done great in resolving these disputes and has an incredible track record so far, more than 200 cases in just 2 or 3 years. I think hope that answers the second question. And to the first question, oh God, I mean, just on top of my head, I think the biggest challenge for me was being taken seriously. When you start off, you have a lot of potential, you have a lot of commitment, you do not know much, but you learn it in 1, 2, 3 years. And I remember the very first case management conference, which is in arbitration, you will have a case management conference at the very early stage with the tribunal to set up the procedural timetable for the case. From the very first CMC that I had to do all by myself, the tribunal chair was a professor from Switzerland, and when I started talking, and he would be said, are we waiting for your partner to come, or why are you speaking? And I was like, no, I will be the one who is running the CMC. And the best solution to it is just take your space and say, yes, it's me, I'm going to do that, and just do it. At some point, the tide shifts, and people know they are talking to you, and you are the one who's leading that.
Regarding the national courts and work overload, in the morning I had a meeting with the Supreme Judicial Council of Armenia, and we talked about the case overload in general. National courts, it's not only a problem here in Armenia, but everywhere, in Kazakhstan also. I think to resolve this problem, national courts and in general government should be cooperative in the development of the arbitration and mediation as dispute resolution mechanisms. Why AFC Court and IEC was a successful project and had such cases? Because the first supporter of our institutions was government. So we were, until we start, so first 7 years we did not receive any fees from anyone. It was totally free, because we were financed by the government. Government gave us, how to say, in Russian there's called floor, a bit time for us to promote ourselves in general for the public to know us. And now when we have a reputation in the region, we are ready and we started taking fees only lately. So that kind of support from the national courts to cooperate, so arbitration and mediation can be popular and to decrease the workload in the national courts, and I think that's super important. Challenge. Probably currently, the career market is super interesting because there is a big question of how many years you have to work in one place. And you constantly, like when you're working, sometimes you don't have time to think about it, but you constantly think, what should I next? Is it now? Where am I going? And it's imposter syndrome. I think most of the junior lawyers have that they're not good enough, and etc. I think that's the general problems that people face. But for me, the solution was the communication with my peers, because I had an internship, and my mentor was actually associate at the law firm, LK law firm, and I was explaining to her like what I should do, and she was like, "It's okay. It's totally fine that you have these thoughts at this stage of your career, and everyone has it. You just have to go through it." And that was very. And for the networking sessions, I asked, "What kind of questions should I ask from the professors?" No, like, don't talk to professors. They don't have anything to talk to you. Talk to your peers, and that's how you make your life easier in general. That's how you form the network that you have, and that's important. And about the Young AMCA, if there are students in the audience, Young AMCA is a great platform. It's totally free to become a member. You can just apply on the website, and you can be a member. And currently, I'm a mentee of the mentorship program, a 2-year mentorship program. Please apply. Be proactive. In general, I think in life you have to be proactive if you want something. That's the key thing to do. And yes, thank you very much.
I don't know if I have difficulties was getting the job. Now that I have the job, I'm enjoying it. But I'm sure I'll find difficulties along the way. But just going back to your first question and to the answers that my colleagues have provided, I think I wanted to mention earlier, I've noticed that organizations like ICA or like AMCA, they really depend on youth initiatives, because young lawyers, they have more time, they have a lot of energy, they're very proactive and enthusiastic. What a hard word to pronounce. So I think it's really great to like nourish AMCA with this energy from us, and through that, hopefully we'll be more known and will help the court issue that you mentioned.
Like Pia, probably my biggest issues were in finding the job and in the unique dynamics of working in a large law firm in the US. There's a lot of toxicity in those environments, and it's a whole separate issue on navigating that. And if you're having this, if you're worried about that, we can have a conversation. So maybe I thought I would maybe share a tip on how I avoided other challenges in the practice, and that is, I think I leaned a lot on mentors, and not necessarily mentors from any partner, any sort of formal partnership. Like my own firm had a mentorship program, like my law school had a mentorship program, all these organizations have mentorship programs, but really just peers in the field that you happen to get along with better. And they're a few years ahead of you. They've seen things you haven't seen. They understand things you don't yet understand, and just having the good sense to reach out if you have questions, to stay in touch, and you never know who might be your greatest guide down the road. Just be open-minded, be friendly, and let's build a positive culture.
I didn't want to close without asking Hank Kuplitz to speak a bit. I think it's important that everybody in the room know Hank and know of Hank. If you want to make a poster now, I mean, this is a good person to make a poster. Can you just introduce yourself and talk about your work on the ICC and your academic work? I
Thanks very much, Grant. You make me blush. Hi everyone, I'm Mike. I was born and raised in Armenia. I went to university here for my undergrad, and I went to study in the UK and I stayed. I don't know why. And I was an academic for some while, then I practiced in American law firms in London. I'm on the ICC court, so ICC, the International Chamber of Commerce, the Arbitration, largest arbitration institution, and I'm the Armenia's court member to the ACC, and I'm involved with AMCA. I'm trying to develop AMCA and make sure that cases coming to Armenia and local businesses are using AMCA, and I think it's a great institution. It has the support of people from abroad, from inside. So yeah, I think that's it.
Well, it's pretty short. Hank, as I would say, is the preeminent scholar of international arbitration of Armenian heritage. That's what he said.
Well, yeah, maybe I tell sort of a few stories. I remember, I think it's a great thing to, first of all, get to know the Armenians in wherever you are. I remember when I just went to London, there was an Armenian guy who met me, and then he showed me all the cheap lunch places around our university, gave me advice. And then I had some other people also supported, gave advice, and I'm trying to do the same. So I think once you've been on the receiving side of advice or help, I think it's a good thing to give back to the community and do the same thing. So I think that's a very good thing to do. I was I think sort of trying to be part of the community where you are. I was for some time the president of the Cambridge Armenian Society. I think it was a very bad president, as you organized many events. We had an excellent event with someone who was Armenian from Iran, from Persia, and then he wrote a book about the maps. He collected all the maps in the world involving Armenia, so just to show that there was no Azerbaijan, there was always Armenia. It was very treatment by that, so we might have gave a very interesting lecture.
At least people now know who you are.
All right, anyone else want to contribute in any way? We're happy to hear from anyone. If not, we're almost at time. I understand there's some drinks somewhere in the building, this wonderful building. So, any further word from any of our panelists? All right, well, please join me in thanking our panel for this excellent.